Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. Don't worry, we're not just doing another Expanse video today. No, we are. Sorry people, but thank God we have the Expanse during this extended period with no new good sci-fi content coming out. Today we continue our series covering Expanse ships. We've done the massive Belter colony ship, the Behemoth. Thank you Mormons for letting the belt wield God's thumbtack. We've done Clyce Ashford's gunship Man Cave. We've done the Donager, the heart and pride of the Martian Navy. And of course we've done the Rocinante, the best damn ship of all time. And so on. All of these ships were titans among darkness, masters of the void, legends of the zero-G battlescape. The Canterbury was none of those things, but we owe all of these videos to it. It's the ship that started it all for our beloved Rocinante crew. At its demise, at its obliteration by unknown forces during its attempt to answer the Scopulized distress signal, it became a symbol of hope for all mankind. Okay, maybe not hope, but more of a rallying cry to system-wide apocalyptic war, but still, it became a legend. A legend that for the sake of Earth and all that is good, we remember. For you young kids out there who don't have to worry about getting blown up on the job, who don't have to fight for the future of your planet, we take some time out today to do what we can to remember the can't. The 1,000-meter-long Canterbury was formerly a colony ship before coming into the Earth-based Pure and Clean Water Company's employ and being refitted for ice hauling operations, collecting ice from Saturn and transporting it back to Ceres Station using its 4 dual Epstein drive boosters to accelerate from point A to B. The ship had directional thrusters for rotational maneuvers as well. The ship's considerable length was mostly due to its massive cargo bay, which extended out to the ship's bow, where through a gaping maw, ice chunks could be captured and moved along by remote manipulator arms. The ice would be cut and then stored on racks. For the crew working in the cargo bay, the job was not always easy or safe. Maybe it wasn't the brightest idea to have human catchers hanging in the bay helping to reel in giant ice rocks hurtling at them. In general, the Pure and Clean Water Company cut corners where it could, and such austerity was reflected in the ship. There was no dedicated med bay, storage space was limited, meaning equipment was kept in random spots around the ship, and computer panels were glitchy, but a good smack usually got them going. As Naomi Nagata explains, the ship was badly due for a retrofit.
Is the retrofit proposal to overhaul this bucket before it breaks apart?
But Pure and Clean wasn't willing to drop the cash to make that happen. Though for the optimists among us, the ship's dysfunction added to its character.
Kant is a legend for her scars, badges of endurance.
The ship's dark, narrow hallways zigzagged around corners and led to all of the various spaces in the ship. There was the common area, which under normal, properly funded circumstances would probably be a dedicated cafeteria with a sweet lunch lady, but given the dilapidation of the ship, it served a multitude of functions, including as an ad hoc med bay. Even the ship's medic was a low-cost option. He faked his resume and probably had no idea what he was doing, though he at least kept his head on straight when dealing with grievous wounds. What was interesting is that despite not having a med bay, the ship did have emergency medical responders on staff that could come to retrieve patients dealing with injuries or mental health emergencies. I'm just a little unclear about where they then took these patients if there was no med bay. I'm kind of suspicious that they might have just spaced them. The crew quarters, or at least the officer quarters, were rather generous in terms of space and comfortability. Most rooms included a screen on the wall for a variety of purposes, from entertainment to target practice.
Whoa!
That said, the security on the room doors wasn't exactly great. A little effort with a crowbar, and you could bust right in on a dude trying to talk to the voices in his head in peace. Finally, we get to the rat-infested bridge, or at least I assume it was rat-infested, given how nonchalantly Holden reacted to the sight of one, though he was about 14 cups of coffee deep when this happened. And I'm not trying to make any unfounded accusations here, but I kind of wonder whether or not he was having a little happy time by injecting himself with some of those high-G burn drugs that are fed into the bodies of the command crew through their seats. The Cant's bridge should stand out relative to other Expanse ships in that it lacked any sort of symmetry in terms of its structure and layout. At the center of the bridge was a ladder which led to an upper deck. Beside this ladder was the flight station. Now this is not a ship where we have to worry about how weapons and piloting responsibilities were distributed among the crew and the physical consoles of the bridge. Why? Well, the ship had no armaments. What could go wrong? The flight station was configured to seat 3 officers who would handle piloting and monitoring duties. The screens all around them seem to each have a dedicated function and can be operated via smaller touchscreens below them. This is actually an interesting aspect of the ship, as most of the more antiquated ships we've seen in the Expanse utilize switches, buttons, and a keyboard to operate their screens and systems. However, though the Canterbury was a severely neglected and aging ship, it still employed touchscreens. Of course, many of you will argue that this only further hindered the ability of the crew to operate the ship, as physical buttons and switches in some ways have superior functionality to touchscreens. Still a noteworthy characteristic of the ship. That said, the Canterbury was piloted using big bulky joysticks akin to what we've seen on similarly out-of-date ships. As far as the captain's station goes, this is the first ship we've seen in the Expanse in which the stations on the bridge didn't surround some sort of center console at which the captain could manage operations. Instead, the captain sat on an enclosed platform well behind the flight station. If the captain wanted to manage an operation, he'd have to come to the flight station in person and watch over the shoulders of his command crew. It's hard to really make a good argument that the Canterbury's bridge was intelligently laid out. It seems more likely that the ship's engineers just fit whatever they could, wherever they could, and then were like, screw it. Beyond its bridge, the Cant carried a number of support ships, including its shuttle, the Knight, which we will take a look at as well. The shuttle was originally intended for moving personnel from the Cant to other ships, space stations, or down to the surface of planets, as it was capable of atmospheric flight. The Knight was attached to the Cant externally and could be accessed via an airlock in the center of the floor of its main flight compartment. Most of the volume of the 20-meter long shuttle was made up of this central area, which consisted of an upper and lower deck, the latter being where the pilot would sit. The ship's consoles and controls mostly matched that of the Canterbury. It had small touchscreens that were used to operate bigger monitoring screens, and joysticks provided the means to steer the ship. As it was only a shuttle, the Knight did not contain the magic of Epstein, and instead housed 3 fusion torch drives, which were simply less efficient and less capable power sources as compared to the offerings of the Epstein drive. The ship also boasted a slower steam propellant system, which could be used as a backup to the torch drives, or instead of them when high-power propulsion wasn't needed. The Knight was also highly maneuverable and had reaction control system thrusters that allowed for rotational and directional movement. Finally, like its parent ship, the Knight was unarmed and welcomed torpedoes with open arms when fired upon. The Canterbury was probably not the best ship to find oneself on at the onset of the extrasolar era. It was outdated, breaking down, and incapable of defending itself. But it went down so that greater ships and crews might rise in its stead, and for that, we remember the Cant. Okay, that's the video. I want to see lots and lots of puns and ship bashing down below, or if you should so dare, defend the ship in the comments and fight back the Horde. Definitely give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Awkward. Subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell. For now, I don't know, my name's American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.